So I think, we should just now open this up and have a discussion. I think we've heard a number of different talks today from all sorts of different perspectives. You've got an introduction to our panel members from different aspects relating to robotics and drones. And I'd really just like to hear questions and perhaps comments and thoughts from the audience participants.
Can I just say one more add to
Yes,
her
yeah.
point?
And
I
I
got
know
it. So that no, this is good. This should work.
well, apparently it wasn't.
Oh, really?
Well,
Can
it
you hear me
sounds
back?
like it's working.
All I was going to say is whatever she says, I completely agree, and that's why you should come work for NASA, because everything she said, you will get there.
Thank you, thank you. Tom, would you like to say something about it?
Well, what I just heard, it correlates very well with what we see in our industry. We don't see, at least our next level of automation isn't going to eliminate jobs. We're having a hard time keeping our equipment running because we can't find people to do it. What we see is a huge opportunity as we automate and helps our processes run more efficiently. We can retrain those workers to do much higher value things in the facility. So that it's a win-win for everybody.
And is that something that you do?
That's optimistic.
That is something we're doing. Now, you have to understand, if you look at the spectrum, smokestack to high tech, we're really over here. So Skeet can help me here, but I think Georgia Pacific and the whole paper industry, we're probably on average with 1980s technology maybe. So some of the stuff we're doing is cutting edge, but a lot of it too is just adapting 1990s technology too, right? So which is a huge win for us, right?
That I was wondering is I heard of so many nice talks from Skyview and so on, success stories. But one thing, being from a formal methods community and trying to verify software, make sure that drone flies successfully, it fails miserably even in simulation. And we don't hear about how many number of times when doing all this videos and so on did a drone really fail. It would be really nice if we could get a repository where there are traces of drone failures which we can analyze and then work on like common notion of failures when we are doing autonomous drones and sharing all these logs together, and so that we can use those for data inference and then safety and so on. So I was wondering, is there a possibility of having this kind of data sharing of common crashes across drone companies?
So the two things you can do. One is you can go to our website, utm.arc.nasa.gov. We have, how many papers? We have 60-some papers. A lot of them lessons learned. I talked about 3 or 4 lessons where things didn't work out very well. There are times when the drone don't start or they fly away. There are lots of interesting things everybody is learning. You can definitely take that input. We also are very serious about building safety case. Actually, we do use formal methods. I'd love to have you guys join our team. Yeah, so we have a number of those things going on. One more thing is UAST, Unmanned Aircraft System Safety Team, has a charter to actually figure out what are all things that go bad. Sometimes it's configuration, sometimes it's compass setting, sometimes it's operator error. Someone said before 99.99. I'm not quite sure that's right or not, but what we have seen is a lot of times it's just design problems and things like that. So this is an area, VNV of autonomous system where things learn over time is a big challenge. If we can't get it right for drones, we will have a lot of trouble for manned aviation. So yeah, we have a group that is focused on VNV of autonomous systems. So yeah, we'll be happy to talk to you more.
Let me just introduce, this is Ankush Desai. He's a PhD student, soon to be finishing his PhD, working with Sanjit Seshia in the area of formal verification. He's worked on a drone project, and I think, Ankush, you have a poster after this, as we said, in the reception, there'll be posters So that will be an opportunity to have people come and talk to you
Yeah,
about what
that'll
you're
be
doing.
good. Jay and I will come see. Yeah, we just hired one of the Berkeley students. I forgot what his name is, Shiva or Vishwa. You know. Anyway, we just hired one of them. So
Yeah, good, thank you.
May I say one statistics I learned very recently from the School of Public Policy? 85% of current research support, current research is done in industry, and only 15% is supported by the government of overall research
applied or fundamental?
in our area,
In academia, you mean?
in academia.
The support?
Oh, in
Yeah,
academia.
yeah. And so that is troubling because I don't know if
That's surprising. That
yeah,
number
I
is very
was surprised.
to me.
Michael Nachts cited this from Bloomberg.
And it's in within the area of robotics, or
In the area of IT and generally speaking, our area that we are talking about here. So if anybody here is, I have been a bit critical that the big companies should be supporting much more the basic long-range academic research. What we see today is a much more short-range support research. And if some of us are not going to think what's going to happen 10, 15 years from now, then even those companies are going to be in trouble. So please deliver the message.
you need a mic. You're going to get the yeah.
So thank you very much and very insightful. And I have a question for Professor
Baichi.
Baichi.
It's like
Sorry.
Tai Chi with a B.
Oh, Baichi. Okay. So in one of your incoming plenary talk, I ran into the title of the talk. I was intrigued. The title was Robotics is Social Science. Maybe you can share something on that?
The answer is much more complex because I view robotics and what we do collectively here is more a human-machine interaction. Robot is a machine of some sort. And I think the current big problem, in my opinion, is this interaction. We were, for many years, very concerned building just the machine, including software, hardware. But now I think we finally accept the fact that these machines live in a society, and therefore we have to somehow learn how the human is going to interact with that machine, and then you can extrapolate how society is going to interact with those machines.
That's excellent. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm putting myself out on a limb here, but I would posit that it is harder to design automation that has to work well with people
Yes.
than it is to design a fully automated solution, at least in several structured cases that we've been working in.
Absolutely agreed. Yes.
Other questions or thoughts? Thoughts about following from the discussion we had about education. I think that one of the, as we're sort of evolving this discussion, we started a little earlier this afternoon talking about how robotics is a great way to bring people into engineering and bring in high school students, middle school students. We had some middle school students here this morning. But it's also our responsibility as educators to educate students on the social aspects of robotics and automation. Yep. And I think, speaking about drones and drone uses, we've talked about jobs. Are there other thoughts about and Rujana's piece, but are there other thoughts about this sort of thread of the social aspects of robotics and the education? You know, being in a university, this is what we think about, educating our students and making sure they're educated holistically. Perhaps from, yeah. Mike.
Yep.
Hi. I don't mean to end on a morbid note, but as of late, we've seen a lot of the big tech companies come out quite forcefully against collaborating with the military on AI technology in general. This is university, a different institution altogether, but you were talking about the ethical responsibility of educating students. What about some of the more lethal applications of drones? How do you approach that?
Good question. I'm not a lawyer, and I am not a politician. I stay away from that as far as I can, because I lived under the communist and the Hitler times, and I know the bad consequences of that. But I think I would say, on the more optimistic way, that many of our students, and thank God there are some of them here, I wish there would be more of them here. I'm a little bit disappointed how few of them are here. But some of them are really thinking about these legal, you know, all the regulatory issues and which are related to the legal questions, and also about ethical questions. I mean, Professor Tomlin had a student who was actually organizing a seminar on this technology and ethical. He's graduated now, but so I would say that our students, God bless them, they are not blind to any of these issues, and among themselves they think about it. They talk to us, but I cannot say that I am explicitly involved in any of these activities.
I'm not going to answer your question, but one of the discussion points in the seminar series we had is, I'm not going to answer your question because I don't know how to answer your question, but you know, it's the question of, so we're developing great technologies for controlling these vehicles, for doing good, for, you know, working in these, some of these wonderful applications we saw today. But somebody could take these technologies and use them for other purposes, and we have no control over that. Does that mean we don't develop the technologies for social good? How do we, that question is something we struggle with and we discuss. We don't know how, I don't know how to answer that right now.
Yep.
Maybe the students who are working on some of these things. I know all of you have thought deeply about this.
There is somebody,
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe this is just sort of my perspective, but I have a feeling that technology in the past 30-some years has increased productivity by an increasing amount, but basically the value that this productivity has produced has been pooling in fewer and fewer places. And do you see that trend continuing? And if so, what are the implications? When is that scheme going to collapse, if at any point?
I wrote an article about this exactly problem. Namely, you can think about it the following. I made the following example. I have a cleaning lady that I pay every week, I don't know, $70 a week. So multiply that by 35 weeks. So let's suppose that I get a robot that can do exactly what she does. And I amortize the robot in 3 years, but then I will still benefit from that robot for at least another 3 years. Who should get that benefit? Should I split it, or how should I do that? And that is really a political question that I have absolutely, I mean, you know, should it be taxation, or these are the things that I think I wish there would be a more political conversation on that, but I don't see that much. But it is a serious problem. Who should benefit from the increased productivity of our technology?
Clearly, government labs should benefit from it. They should get more funding.
NASA.
NASA.
Come work for NASA.
I agree.
What do you see in industry around this, Tom, related to the, you know, the changing technology? Because you've been observing, and you're the person in the company that's pushing these new technologies. How do you see that evolving? We talked a little bit about that earlier.
Well, as we evolve, I mean, I think it's related to the question. You know, we used to have mills that had 20 small paper machines with 5 people on each one running them, and you can replace 10 of those with one brand new machine with 3 people running it, right? That's just, I mean, that's, if we don't do that, we don't stay in business, right?
Yes.
And there's some ramifications to that, obviously, but going out of business isn't good for our employees either, right? So I don't know where that falls out. What I do know, like I said, is it's not like right now anyway, with automation that we're laying people off. We have plenty of work for people to do, and we're putting them into more value-added roles, at least for the near future.
So what your company, they consciously retrain people for new roles? That, I mean, that's
we're going through that process. That we've developed a plan, and that's our vision of the future. And I think we have a great start on that, and we see potential to have a situation where everyone benefits.
Yeah.
No, the sad thing is that the reason we have a hard time filling some of these roles, it's not because there aren't people, it's that they can't pass the drug test, they don't have a high school diploma. Those are more basic problems, and we're trying to affect that as well. We're going as a corporation into the high schools and middle schools in these communities to help really encourage STEM activities, keep people in school. You know, we're trying, but you know, it's a tough road.
When you combine that with the challenge you've got over the next 5 years, you're going to lose 45% of your knowledge base. So maybe from this time.
Right.
And you got that challenge of bringing people in, but you're going to lose a substantial portion of your knowledge base. People have been working at the mill for 30 years. They know how to make product, but now they're going out, and the new generation comes in.
Yeah, and the new generation will be focused more on running the systems that make the product as opposed to making the product. That's what we're excited about, degrees like mechatronics, and those are the folks that we need, you know, to come in and help run the process. And by the way, I think a great opportunity for students in your field is to come spend a little time with us, come do an internship, help us out, and get some exposure.
Yeah, I mean, your talk was really illuminating on, I would have never known these issues.
Yes.
And I tell you that the interns we get, they get some incredible exposure in our industry. They get projects that in some of the other industries, engineers don't get till they've been there for 5 years. So Pulp and Paper, there's a lot of opportunity there, a lot of learning. So come check us out.
You know, I want to take this thread and maybe loop back. Keenan is standing over here, and loop back to our first talk today. We're talking about like job creation and job changing, and you must have experienced this or seen this so starkly in the problems that you've been working in. And I wonder if you have a comment or a thought to add to this. And I would, we have our mic.
I have a lot of thoughts on this topic. It's something I've been on the front lines of for a long time. You know, it's interesting. I'm curious actually to hear in your company if you've actually seen this happen. In theory, yes. You know, you can get a new tool, that is more enables a higher level of productivity, in theory you can scale back. The companies I've had the opportunity to see frontline activity on that do that never actually lay somebody off. I spent a lot of time in Toyota. Toyota increased productivity for 60 years. You know, I recently went to a 6-year-old plant that is still improving that line 20 times a day, a 6-year-old line. And they never laid someone off because the line got more productive. The people who drove that innovation in the Toyota culture anyway are the people on the line, and the people who drive the most efficiency wins, they're the ones getting promoted. They're the ones traveling the globe to train that innovation to other plants. I see the same thing in Germany when I visit factories there. Amazing automation technology. Now in Japan and in Germany, the mindset is different. Automation here is often sort of proxy for labor replacement. In those cultures, it's proxy for human productivity improvement. And these are very different things. And I think it's hard when I walk into, I've been to some factories in the States where I see resistance to automation. And I find it very sad because what's happening is in other countries that are embracing automation, these very positive views are just killing us on productivity. And productivity per dollar at the end of the day on a global economy, unfortunately, that's what wins. If you're willing to work for less money, you can change that equation. But I'd rather improve my productivity than work for less money. And I think it's a very tricky thing because I do see the cultures that are doing it well. I think Germany is the best one in this particular regard I'm about to mention. Huge investments in continuing education by the government-led investments. The notion that you're going to get an education when you're young and ride your career on that education, they're getting that that's not the reality anymore. That's not going to work anymore. That's a 100-year-old idea that has sort of passed, or that should be passing. And you know, I think a lot about this in the context of a lot of the things that are coming, and I try to find those places where this is actually happening. And I'd love to find more anecdotes that sort of counter what I'm seeing, because I'm sure they're out there. But the only companies that I've found that live in practice, hey, we got this better machine, so we laid off a bunch of people. The only examples I can find of companies like that are now out of business because that mindset is just completely broken. And some of it comes back to who's winning, right? I visited this plant in, I want to say it was in Baltimore, but don't quote me on that. And they make wire mesh welded baskets. Unbelievably awesome automation. They're taking people with high school diplomas who 10 years in are wielding automation that would make a lot of the people coming out with engineering degrees be frustrated with. And they're doing it every single day and doing it in a way that's competing competitively at cost with labor markets like China. And it's really cool to see. And they're, I mean, well, these high school graduates are getting compensated incredibly well. The typical employee in this factory when I was there was making about $100K a year on average. And but it's a very different way of looking at the problem. You know, I subscribe to the definition of a robot, that a robot is a machine that doesn't work yet. And I really believe that definition because I've seen it so many times. And I know that there's always a hypothetical. And I hate disagreeing with you on stage here because I'm a huge admirer of your work and I've read pretty much everything you've written that I can get my hands on. But you know, I think it's as I look for real world examples of the sort of like the maid replacement example you gave, I just don't see them. I do see. I met recently this really interesting janitorial service firm in the South Bay that does use automation technology, but the people who used to be doing the mopping by hand are operating these mopping robots, and their income has gone up. And I think everything I'm finding that actually is succeeds because it's not designed to be a robot or be autonomous. It's a tool that has people that operate it. Recently, there's a great example in the Bay Area. Elon actually tweeted about this. You know, Elon did this in his plant, on the Model 3 plant. He said, we're going to automate this better than anybody's ever automated an automotive line before. And you know, he took what I would call the American view of automation in that. And at the end of the day, they looked at it, and they saw that they needed about 1,200 full-time engineers to maintain these unreliable robots. Just to be clear, 1,200 is way more line workers on a typical automotive line. And rather than taking the Japanese approach that I have a huge respect for and saying, you know, let's leverage these, let's think about these machines that work, that in Japan they call automation, who's using these tools, right? And to me, it's no different than the hand auger well, I guess then a steam-powered drill to an electric drill that happened in the early part of the century. No question. Like, you know, in 1880, you could get a job running a hand auger to make holes in wood. And that was like a thing you would do all day long. And that has essentially gone away. But anyway, I guess sorry for the long-winded answer here, but it's something I think a lot about, and I've worked with a lot of companies to help them even succeed in developing these technologies, because too often, if someone's developing that better mill for making paper, and they're not thinking about who's actually operating that thing, even though it may not look like the operator role from 10 years ago, you're now wielding automation in a way where before you have to do it yourself, you have to be thinking about that user and how they're going to engage with it, and how they're actually going to keep it running. Because I mean, maybe someday there's a robot that is our sort of sci-fi definition of robot, but there's no robot in the world today that's not operated by a person that you can point to. Well, actually, you know, that works. And I'm often, I should say, there's no robot that works that's not operated by a person at the end of the day. And too often we forget that in a big way, and we kind of misconstrue. Sort of, unfortunately, I hate to speak ill of the dead, but I worked a lot with Rethink Robotics, and I think they were a little too far in the direction. If you take Universal Robotics, hopefully people know these companies I'm talking about. Universal Robotics succeeding wildly. They had the right view here, that robot is a tool that they need to enable as many people in the world to be able to wield as humanly possible, make it easy to use. Rethink had this slightly different model. It's a subtle difference of like, oh, it's collaborating with people. And it turns out that's not how automation actually works in the real world. Nobody, I mean, I'm not one of them. I've never met a human being who wants to collaborate with a robot. They want to be more productive. They want to do more. They want to make their job better, faster, higher quality, whatever that motivates them. And we have to design products from that point of view, whether or not we want to call them robotics products, to succeed, in my opinion.
And that's very consistent with the way we see it. So if I implied something else, I misspoke.
No, I agree. I agree with you. I was actually curious if that thing you described actually manifested in a layoff. But I think I've never found that in a succeeding
I haven't heard of a layoff in years and years.
Exactly.
But I think holistically, Tom, would you say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you were in a mill with 700 people. Today, more product.
With less people. And a lot of that is because of retirements, right?
Attrition. Not layoff, it's attrition. Yeah. And it's better productivity. Now, is that due to robots? Not necessarily robots, but
it's automation.
Yeah.
Sure.
Automation.
And by the way, the customers, I'm on the vendor side, so I'm dealing with them as a customer and we're refinery or whatever. But we are seeing consciously, and they come to us and go to our other customers with their HR people. They're trying to figure out, from an HR standpoint, how are we going to address this? I don't want to lose these people. I want these people to convert to be more productive in my new automated environment. So we are seeing a lot of conscious effort from the customers.
Thank you. Okay, this has been a fantastic discussion. I think it's time to formally end our meeting and move to our reception. You're all invited, posters from the students, and I'd like to thank our panelists. I'd like to thank our speakers today, and all of you.